Good day, everyone. So this time I am tasking to report about my topic. So I am the first reporter of this course. So this is actually the continuation of our professor's topic, which is the forest. I mean the influence of forest to atmosphere. So this is module 1 lesson 2. So my topic is all about the influence of forest vegetation and microclimate. So prepared by me. Okay, let's now proceed. So what is microclimate? So based on my opinion, a microclimate maybe comprise the side of a mountain or a section of a desert tents or perhaps even hundreds of kilometers or in extent. So microclimate also involves local condition and also the to induce by features such as soil, yes, such as soil, vine training, and also the topography. So let's find out here. So microclimate is the set of climatic factor or I mean climatic condition measured in localized areas near the Earth's surface. So these environmental variables which include temperature. So yes, include yes this temperature will be included to the microclimate. The light, the wind speed, and moisture provide meaningful indicators for habitat selection and other ecological activities. And it is also a local set of atmospheric. So as we go back to our first topic, which is the atmospheric, I mean, what is the influence of forest to atmospheric or atmosphere? So the microclimate actually introduced to that topic. So yes, you have already an idea what are those microclimates. So or the conditions on that certain word microclimate. So that is also differ from those in the surrounding areas. So often with a slight difference, but sometimes with a substantial one. So the term may refer the areas as small as a few square meter or square feet. So the term microclimate not just only in the huge area but also in the small or few square meter or square foot. So microclimate is also present in the small area. So for example, in a garden bed or a cave, so microclimate are still present in that certain area. So or as long as large, yes, as I said a while ago, not just only in the large but also in the small or in the few square meters. So or as large as many square kilometers, square miles, because climate is statistical, which implies spatial and temporal variation of the main values of describing parameters. So these are the parameter of the microclimate, from the small area or a few square meter to a large or many square kilometers. That is the parameter of the microclimate. So within a region, there can occur and persist over time sets of statistically distinct condition that is microclimate. So microclimate can be found in the most places. So even in your area, there also a microclimate. So as I said a while ago, microclimate is to measure the localized areas or to what are those climatic suit conditions. So as the definition tells us that the microclimate is a variable which includes the temperature, the light, wind speed, and the moisture. Okay. So we have we have 5 factors that affect microclimate. So what are those 5 factors? First, we have the topography. So the shape of the land is significant influence on microclimate. So the area, or yes, the land area is very significant to the microclimate. So even if the area is small or large, medium, but still the microclimate is present. So while on the large scale, so let's do the sample for the large scale or the large area. So weather system have a certain predictability or related to the rotation of the earth and the interplay between ocean and the land. So in this case, in a huge area, so we are going to relate the rotation of the earth to interplay with the ocean and the land. So these patterns can get disrupted at the local level by topographical features such as aspect and slope. So even in this area, such as the slope, the microclimate is disrupted to local level. So this is also the case on flatter ground where trees, hedges, fences, and walls cast shadows. So we were going to relate that in the vegetation. Okay, so my topic is all about the forest vegetation to microclimate. So for example, in the large area, or shall we say in the small scale area, if ever that in that area has or have or less vegetation, so that would be there will be an effect to the topography, like the moisture of the area, the air humidity, the yes, the microclimate, of course. So which is the light or wind speed. So that would be the sample of the topography. So as you see the definition, so that is the case on flatter ground where trees, hedges, fences, and walls cast shadows. Okay, next we have the soil. So soil is also one of the factors that affect the microclimate. So the composition of the soil affects microclimates primarily through how much water it retains or which evaporate from it. So a soil that has a large proportion of clay retains more moisture than one that is predominantly sand. So as the definition itself, as you read, so the large proportion of the clay, the more moisture it retains. So after the heavy rains, the soil can contain a lot of water. So as you observe, guys, if there's a heavy rain came in your area, so have you observed that there's a lot of water contained in the soil? So that certain time, the microclimate's modifying, meaning it lessen the microclimate, much like a body of water such as a lake. So yes, that is one of the sample that the microclimates lessen or modify, such as a lake or ponds or whatnot. So besides the mineral composition of the soil, the degree of coverage it has will affect the temperature and moisture evaporation. So the more water that the soil contain is the coverage or the degree of the water will affect the temperature and the moisture evaporation. So bare of soils reflect also more light and heat than those covered by plants or mulch. So that's it. Okay, next we have the water. So water is one of the part of the factor that affect the microclimate. So the water stored on the surface of the land is also important. So after heavy rain or after raining, so the water stored in the certain area or in the soil or in the surface, and that is very important to moisturize or to have the impact to that temperature in your certain area. So over a region, the presence of the lakes and the reservoir can create a more moderate climate. So while ponds, streams, and other bodies of water on your site will impact upon the temperature of the surrounding areas in your garden. So these effects are due to fact that the water gains and loses heat. So, yes, as you understand this, so the effect of having more water in the surface, that is the losses of the heat, and that is um, slowly loses the heat in the surface of the land. So that is to convert into moisturize to help plant having a or transpire it by the plants. So the moisture in the air around plants can also influence the plants. So that's it. So you're placed there with species favoring or a more humid microclimate likely to thrive. So that is that is also an advantage to plants that is thriving in the certain area or in the in the ponds, streams, or in lakes. Okay. Next, we have also the vegetation. So the vegetation is naturally adapted to make the most of its climate of origin. So, for instance, plants that originate in tropical areas tend to have broad, dark leaves that allow for the maximum absorption of the sunlight. So, as you observe, guys, if that certain area or in that certain vegetation is more crowd, or the canopy is more shady, so have you observed that the sunlight is trapped to the canopy area? So the leaves allow for the maximum absorption of sunlight, and the effect is the transpiration of moisture back into the air, not in direct to the sunlight. So the moisturizer, the moisture of the transpiration to the soil is transpired to the moisture into the air. So which will into turn influence the microclimate in the immediate vicinity. So use in the native plants in your permaculture microclimate or design to make the most of this adaptation. Not only does it covers the soil and prevent heat losses and radiation from it, it also regulates the temperature of the soil. So filters dust and other particles from the air can act as a windbreak or sun trap. So the canopy or the vegetation also help to trap the sunlight so that the transpiration coming from the surface or the excessive water coming from the surface are actually good transpire coming from the plant. So that is not directly to the sun rays or into the sun or the heat coming from the sun to transpire, but the air only transpire the excessive water coming from the surface. That's why have you observed in the certain area that that having a full vegetation or having no sunlight trapped by the canopy. The sunlight trapped by the canopy. So have you feel that more? It's cold in the area. It's so refreshing. Yes. So next we have also the artificial structure. So artificial structure also is part of the affecting factor of the microclimate. So it can also play as part of the modifying microclimates. So makalasan din siya ng microclimates for the artificial structure. For instance, patios and other paved surface like driveways moderate temperature by absorbing and releasing the heat. So the main purpose of the structure, the artificial structure, is that, for example, in your house that is less vegetation, right? Wala masyadong plants doon. So for us to be able to have a refreshing or to have the cooling air, so we must do what? To propagate any plants in our garden, or let's say, for example, in the driveways. Yes, we have so-called that alley cropping. as you observe in the driveways, may mga puno na tinatanim like alley cropping na straight siya, like for example in the Tagum, yes, the city of Pine, as you observe that having an alley cropping like I mean sample of species is the coconut, I mean the pine. Yes, I mean the palm. I'm so sorry. The palm. Yes, have you observed that not just only for the aesthetic, but also let's focus the moisture. Though the city is having not a more vegetation, but it feels like so refreshing because if you see those species planted by the government, so it feels so refreshing even if it is heat. So yes, by observing releasing heat, while fences or walls can give plants protection from wind, yes, shade and shelter from wind, even rocks in the garden will have an impact by storing and releasing the heat. So you can judiciously place rocks to modify microclimates. Microclimates are dynamic things. So also in artificial structure, so you can put also rocks, because rocks also modify microclimates by releasing heat. So at the same time, you have your planting the plants or the trees that could be transpired the moisture coming from the surface, the excessive water coming from the soil. Okay, so yes, so this is the topography pictures, the soil, the water, the vegetation, and the artificial structure. So next, what causes microclimate? So first we have the soil surface and below. So soil exposed to the sun heats up during the day and cools during the night. So within a few centimeters of the surface, the temperatures during the day can be extreme. So this is despite the fact that the covering of trees absorbs sunlight and heats up the air above the ground in the warmer months and warm the local and the regional climate overall. This extra warming does not reach in the ground, however, at least not strongly enough to compensate for the lack of the intense direct heating of the sun that would be found an open tundra soil in the summer. So have you observed, guys, from day and night? So in the day, there is a presence of the sun or heat coming from the sun. So have you observed, even we have a lot of vegetation, but we can feel the heat of the sun, but less heat from the sun because of the help of the plants vegetation or the forest vegetation that moisture the water coming from the surface. And for the evening, yes, it more likely a cooling, yes, because the sun is absent. That's why the moisture coming from the surface that transpire to the plants, so that is very nice and good, or that is the difference between night and day by the moisturizing or moisture to the surface coming from the plants. So next we have, yes, the picture. This is the picture if the sun directly hit to the soil, so parang mabiyak siya because lack of water. So next we have the roughness and turbulence. So the turbulence zone created by the canopy often reaches up to several times that the height of the trees themselves. A more miniature turbulent layer will also be created above the scrub vegetation when the wind blows across open ground between the bushes and then jumps against their leaves and branches. Generally, whatever the height of the biggest plants in the ecosystem, the ruling turbulence that they create will extend for at least twice their own height into atmosphere above. The turbulence microclimate created by air blowing over uneven vegetation surfaces also helps to propel heat and moisture higher up into the atmosphere, altering the temperature underground and feeding broader scale climate process. Oh, okay. So this we'll see in the chapter 5 and 6 to my references. So we will see the various case studies where changes in vegetation roughness seem to affect the climate quite noticeably. Okay. So next we have the microclimates of the forest canopy. So the canopy understory of a forest are like two different worlds, one hot and illuminated by blending the sunlight. The other dark, moist, and cool parts, a large forest tree can extend all the way between these two worlds, and trees will often spend their early years in deep shade before pushing up into the light above. Both the canopy and the understory microclimates present their own distinct challenges, and the plants need adaptation to meet this. It is remarkable how hot the surface of the temperature of tropical forest canopy can become a sunny summer's day, with leaf temperature exceeding 45 degrees Celsius in tropical rainforest. Although it is cloudy and humid much of time, a few sunny hours are enough to dry out the air at the top of the canopy and really bake the leaves. So this is the causes for the microclimates of the forest canopy. So yes, as you can see the picture, the top view of the canopy direct from the sun. So next, managing the microclimate. So microclimate components, so we have the localized dynamic interplays between different processes in the surface layer. So the microclimate determines the moisture available in the soil and air to the different ecosystem, the presence of the dew and frost. So when we say frost, that is the freezing or the permafrost of the surface. If the area having the more plants or having the most vegetation forest. So that's the microcomponents. So its capacity to fixate nitrogen by soil biota and the occurrence of pests and diseases. So this section provides an overview of the various factors that determine the microclimate. So next, the soil moisture. So as we discussed a while ago, the soil. So that would be yes, as we manage the microclimate. So let's have to planting trees to have the moisture coming from the surface area. So next, the soil moisture and the microclimate. So the soil moisture is one of the most important microclimate determinants. So the area are available to soil moisture. So that is have a more balanced microclimate with lower air and soil temperature. So this is not only the facilitates plant growths, but also affects weather patterns and local rainfall patterns. On the contrary, when there is only limited air temperature increase. So next, the air temperature and microclimate. So the maximum air temperature occurs in the upper crown. So the daytime temperature also are the lower. At night, the minimum temperature occur in the upper crown due to the cooling of the earth's surface and the air near the ground called radiation cooling. So the process of the moisture coming from the surface is called radiation cooling. So cooling, yes. This particularly happens with a clear sky, calm wind, and low humidity. So that how we manage the microclimate. So next is air humidity and microclimate. So higher air humidity slows down transpiration from plants and it does not absorb water vapor. So Here, the presence of local wind is essential to mix the local. So the high air humidity or in the combination in changes in the air temperature can lead to rainfall in the landscape. So in case of circumstances makes air humidity reach saturation point. So local winds also play a role in dew formation. So next is wind and microclimate. So wind can have cooling effect by removing the boundary layer of a warm air around the plant. So this can also increase water consumption by plant as removing the layer and replacing it with drier air will causes increased transpiration. So wind also can cause temperature to be warmer or cooling depending on the ambient temperature. So furthermore, many cereal crops are wind pollinated. So landscapes tend to have heterogeneous surface with much different in surface characteristic. So when on the microclimate, so that would one of the managing on how we manage the microclimate. So I guess that's it. So thank you for listening for my report. But do not worry, guys. I have here a soft copy. So I will be sending this to Sir Solis. The topic of my report, the influence of forest vegetation of microclimate. So yes, I hope that you understand, or yes, you understand about what is the influence of vegetation or forest vegetation to microclimate. So that's it. Thank you. I am Christian Astrologo. Thank you for listening, and God bless and goodbye.